Good morning again, class. Welcome back. This is one of our final videos we'll be making for this semester during this COVID-19 disaster. And this is for IVCC students, and we're going to be covering information pertaining to water-related emergencies today. We'll also cover information pertaining to pediatrics, older adults, and special situations later on in another video. So do make sure you do look for that video on this page, as well as in your emails that I'm going to still be sending to you via Blackboard now. So do check Blackboard. IVCC apparently had a hack go on, so you're going to have to go with Blackboard to make sure you see these assignments. But I still do need you to reply by email to me. And that email address is going to be lowercase FOG0845@yahoo.com. It is on your syllabi, so if you need it, it's there. If you, of course, have any questions or concerns, again, on the syllabus, you have my cell phone number. Call me, text me, anytime you'd like. I will respond very quickly by that. Email, of course, a little slower, but I do check that all the time as classes move to that way, so do be prepared to do that. If I haven't replied to you for the last assignment, please go ahead and resend that assignment then through that email, the FOG0845@yahoo.com. Just since they had that hack happen last week, everything went down, so I'm not able to access your last assignments. Please forward those to me to ensure that I got those, because the semester is wrapping up, in fact, in a week and a half from today. So without anything further, let's go ahead and jump into water-related illnesses or emergencies. So of course, what's the most important one that we're looking at, right? Drowning. Pretty obvious here. Drowning is one of the most common water-related emergencies that are going to exist for us to see. This is when a person is actually experiencing respiratory impairment due to submersion, right? Here's a couple statistics for you. It is the 5th leading cause of death from unintentional injury in the United States. It is also the 2nd leading cause of death for persons between the ages of 1 to 14. And the highest rates of drowning are going to be from children younger than the age of 5, because of course they can't swim yet. They fall into pools, so on and so forth. And then also young adults between the ages of 15 to 24, because there's a lot of horseplay going on at those ages. Now we got some factors that we're going to look at for water-related emergencies. Number one, factors that increase the likelihood for drowning would be, of course, younger children left alone and unsupervised around water. We have people that are using alcohol or recreational drugs while they're, swimming or on the beach, whatever it may be. Somebody could have a traumatic injury, right? Maybe they dive into a sandbar that they don't see underwater and they hurt themselves. A drowning incident could easily occur from that. They bash their head, right? They hit their arm on the rocks and they cannot swim no longer because they can't tread water. Little things like that. You never know. Another reason, conditions or disabilities could be causing sudden weaknesses or losses of consciousness while in the water. So what if somebody's having a seizure in the water, right? What if they're having an allergic reaction to a bee sting or a tentacle being on them from a squid or something like that, right? Or a jellyfish, right? One of those things. We're looking at all those aspects. And then we're also looking at history of mental illness. Sometimes people with mental illness can have a freak out in the water and they forget how to swim. This would be a reason to be suspected of a drowning factor. So now we have to look at a couple other things too. What are the chances of survival from a drowning incident? Well, we have to look at two possibilities. Number one, how long have they been submerged, or we could say unable to breathe? How long have they been without oxygen? The second one is, what is the temperature of the water? Because we know that hot water isn't as detrimental to the body as cold water. Cold water, now we have not only drowning going on, right, but now we also have hypothermia possibilities going on. So the heart rate decreasing, the hypothalamus ceasing function to the point where multiple organ systems should shut down, including the brain. Now your book has an excellent couple of pictures here to look at of what is considered drowning as active or drowning versus passive. So let's define those two words. Active versus passive. Active means you're actively swimming, actively moving, actively burning energy, right? So somebody who is an active drowning victim, we're going to see their head primarily above water. We're probably going to see some fear in their eyes. They're probably going to be gasping for breath. A lot of anxiety going on usually when a drowning incident is occurring. So we can see that. Active, okay? So they're up above water. Passive is more along the lines of when somebody can no longer keep their head above water, right? Passive drowning. They are underwater, they can't get their head above water, and now they're not moving at all. So that's definitely passive. Now we could just have a distressed swimmer. Maybe somebody has a cramp going on. So a distressed swimmer, right? They're swimming around, freaking out. Active swimmer, their head's above water most of the time, catching breath, but still looking like they're gonna fail. Passive, now their head's completely below water. There's no chance of them getting oxygen. They're not moving anymore. Definitely drowning situations. Some of these situations sound like they'd be easier to help, right? For instance, if you are somebody who is not a lifeguard, you're not certified to go out there and save somebody, right? A throw assist is going to be more appropriate than a wait assist, going out there to get the person. And let's get through these here in a couple seconds. So how are we going to take action? Number one, we have to consider our own safety, is what I was saying there, right? If you're going after somebody who is drowning, you got to know how to bring them out of the water safely. So if you're not a lifeguard, that's something you don't want to do. So consider your safety first. Are you going to get hurt in the process? Number two, look for a lifeguard. Pretty simple. When you're at a place with a lifeguard, you want to get their attention and get them into the water, helping that person first and foremost. That's their job. Third, have appropriate equipment. Okay, so if a lifeguard is not present, do you have the equipment necessary to save somebody? Do you have a flotation device that you can wade out on and help that person? Do you have a flotation device that you can throw out to that person? Do you have a stick you can reach out to that person? So look at the equipment necessary and how can you help. Number four, never, ever swim out to a person unless you are trained, right? We are not certified to be lifeguards. We are certified to be first responders, first late responders, in fact. So our goal is to help the person in the meantime as best as possible without putting ourselves into danger. Last but not least, if the drowning person is unconscious, send someone to call while you start to rescue, right? Because it doesn't make sense for you to run somewhere else and call. It's best case for you to try to get that person out of the water since they're not actively drowning anymore. They're not going to be freaking out anymore, right? And you can easily grab them and pull them because they're just a limp body now. You need to get them out. You need to get the water out of their lungs, get oxygen into their lungs, circulating that so that way they don't die. Now again, look at your pictures in your book. Okay, there's a couple pictures of how you could help how a non-swimming rescuer can assist. So you can first start by talking to the person, right? Get their attention. Say, hey, look over here, look over here. I'm gonna bring a stick to you. I'm gonna throw you a rope. I'm gonna throw you a flotation device. Get their attention so they know that it's coming. And then you have 3 ways you can help this person when you're not swimming out there. Number 1, you can do a reach assist. You can reach out with a stick or with your arm if you're holding on the embankment and you're close enough, and then they can grab that and pull them in then with the stick. A throw assist would be when you take a flotation device attached to a rope and you throw it out to them. That way they can grab that and you can reel them in as well. The last one for a non-swim would be called a wade assist. And that's when the water is shallow enough to where you're never going to go above your head. You can walk out in the water, grab the person, and pull them in safely. Very effective for smaller people, obviously, since they can't swim in shallow water, right? We can still touch ground in shallow water, and we can go help them out. Good idea. Now, things that we don't do. We never go into water that is a deep water situation. If there's no trained water rescue responder on the scene, that's not our job. Our job right now is to identify and then decide to call 911 as soon as possible. So we call 911 for a deep water drowning emergency. Now if the drowning victim is submerged in shallow water, we can do that reach down and grab the person to pull to the surface. We can turn the person's face up, right, to make sure they are having a chance of getting some air in their mouth or their nose. And then we can remove the person from the water and give proper care as necessary. So if we suspect that, after we brought the person to the beach, right, or the ground, we did our head tilt, chin lift, and look down the body for 10 seconds. We see no breathing, no circulation. We have to perform CPR. Hopefully we've called 911 now. Now with a drowning emergency, we're treating this as a breathing emergency. We can go ahead and give those full 2 minutes of care first before we call 911. But if we have somebody there with us, have them call 911 while you're giving those first 2 minutes of care. Our priorities, right? Again, priorities are to call 911 as soon as we possibly can. But these are the 3 big ones. Ensure that the person's face is out of the water. Again, we have to make sure they're delivering oxygen if they still are breathing. So by having their face underwater, that's not going to help the situation at all. We got to get their head above water. Secondarily, we need to maintain an open airway during that process. I know it's a little harder than you might think, but we'll see a couple pictures, and it actually makes a lot of sense to use the arms to pinch the head upward. Lastly, begin resuscitation as soon as possible. So the second the person is on a firm, flat surface, we begin CPR. And again, we give first 2 initial rescue breaths since this is a breathing emergency first. Now, general care. For an unresponsive person face down in shallow water, what we can do is we can use the head splint technique to turn the face up. Simply enough, what you're going to do is approach the person from their side. And there's pictures in your book, so make sure you do look at these. A couple of kids in a pool, looks like they're flipping each other over. And what they're doing is they're taking the girl, and since she's face down in the water, unconscious, unresponsive, they're taking her arms and they're pinching them on either side of her head. So when she flips over, right, she's on her face. When she flips over, her hands, or you could say her arms, are going to keep her head pinched, so she's not going to move her head at all. It's going to keep her center of gravity up, so that way her back's going to arch, and it's going to keep her head above water the whole time. So that's the big thing we can do here. The big thing we can do, I'm sorry about the glare right now, everybody. The big thing we can do is pinch the arms together, flip the person onto their back, and they're more likely to float for us. Again, look at the pictures in the book. It shows you great examples of how to do this. Again, shallow water where you can touch the ground. Now, if we suspect that there's a spinal cord injury to go along with this, that technique works very well by pinching and holding the head in place, so that way we're not getting that movement going on. Okay, what we need to do is pull that person as safely as we can to water's edge, and then if we have an assister to help us, we'll need them to maintain the neck position, or be the stabilizer, the manual stabilizer of the head, neck, and spinal cord. So when we pull that body on the ground, it stays in alignment, and we can start conducting CPR as soon as possible. All right, so care for an unresponsive person once face up. What do we do? Okay, well, first thing, what we're going to do is once they are on firm, flat surface, we're going to open the airway and check for breathing. So these are our ABCs of check, call, care. We check the scene behavior is safe. We grab the person. We care for conditions found. Well, we're going to go ahead and care for those conditions. Since this is a respiratory condition, 2 minutes. Again, if somebody else is there, they can call 911 for you. If you got a cell phone, you could dial it, speed dial it, set it there, and you can be doing this hopefully at the same time. But again, head tilt chin lift technique. We're going to lift the chin just a little bit. Again, we don't have to go all the way up with the head. We just got to take the neck from here to here. We're just opening up the airway, so we at least have that 90-degree angle going on there, so oxygen is getting in. We're going to look down the body for 10 seconds. Feel for air, listen for air, look for air with the chest rising and falling. We can palpate the wrist to feel for circulation. If we know we have no breathing, that means we have most likely, well, going to a point where there's either a small amount of heart rate or no heart rate. If we have no heart rate, we know that there is no breathing going on, because we can't have a heart rate and we can't have breathing and no heart rate, right? Because I can hold my breath, my heart's still beating. But if my heart stopped beating, there's no way I'm ever going to be breathing. So if we suspect that there's no heart rate, we know there's no breathing. Let's start CPR right away. Either way, we're going to perform CPR with a drowning individual. So if we suspect that there is a head, neck, or spinal cord injury, we have to maintain that alignment. Okay, we don't want to let the head lose that positioning, so we're going to have to maintain contact on the head somehow by holding it, right, when we're doing the airway breathing circulation aspect. And then if we have somebody to assist us, they can hold the head in position. But again, we do not restrict CPR if we fear that head, neck, or spinal cord injury. We're going to have to let go of the head. We're going to have to give CPR to help save that person's life initially. So we know that we give those first 2 rescue breaths. Then we start with our progressions of 30 to 2 ratio, 30 compressions to 2 rescue breaths. We do 5 full bouts of that for one complete 2-minute cycle of CPR. We recheck down the body for 10 seconds looking for signs of life. If we do not detect those, we continue with CPR, right? If we do detect those signs of life, we roll the person maybe on their side, but what is going on here? Head, neck, or spinal cord injury. In this case, right, it may be best case scenario to maintain the position as carefully as possible while we roll them, right, into that Haynes recovery position and hold them there, because they might vomit up water still, right? Once we know that there's no more water and they're breathing, that's when we can secure the neck again, roll them back onto their back, and then we can manually stabilize the skull in position. So that way we have no fear of further injuries arising. If any of this is unclear like usual, go ahead, call me, text me, email me. I'm happy to clarify anything. Now, some other things we can look at now too. Okay, what if the person needs to be moved, right? How do we move the person? Well, I went through a couple of those, right? We can do a beach drag first and foremost. A beach drag is where you grab somebody by their ankles and you pull them along the sand. This is when we do not suspect a head, neck, or spinal cord injury, right? Well, that's a reason to use a beach drag. So you grab them by their ankles, you can technically grab them by their arms if you want to, and then pull them. You can even grab them from underneath the armpits, squat down, and then pull them to wherever you need to. Those are all considered beach drags. Or a two-person lift. Two-person lift is a great option because, again, you don't want to hurt yourself. If two people can lift that person and move them to a firm, flat surface, great scenario there. We know that with a head, neck, or spinal cord injury, we have to keep that in alignment. So neither one of those drags would work or lifts would work. We would require something like a clothes drag, if they're wearing clothes, right? Or a blanket drag would be very useful in this situation. Once they're on the beach, we can drag them with the blanket. Now, let's get into a situation where there's ice involved, right? What if somebody has fallen through ice? Well, first off, we never go and try to attempt saving somebody if they broke through ice. We're going to put ourselves into further harm too. So immediately call 911. Then we use a reach or a throw assist to help that person if they're actively drowning. Talk to the person until help arrives. Keep them calm if you can. And if you're able to pull them out, then start caring for hypothermia if they're conscious. If they're unconscious, different story. We never rewarm the body before we give CPR. CPR is our primary goal, circulate blood, then we rewarm the body. And that'll do it for our water-related emergencies. If there's any questions, concerns, comments, my 3 C's I like to say, but there's a Q involved there. Feel free to contact me by email, again, lowercase FOG0845@yahoo.com. You can also text me, call me by my cell number, which is on the syllabi. So do get a hold of me through those fashions if you can. Be prepared for the next video, and yes, we do have a couple tests coming up. Our last first aid exam, followed by our final exam coming up this next week. So stay tuned. Thank you so much.